Most men over 60 do not have a wardrobe problem. They have a wardrobe accumulation problem. Over years, sometimes decades, pieces have been added without an equal number being removed. A shirt bought for a specific occasion that never quite happened again. A jacket that fit well 5 years ago and now sits slightly wrong. Trousers in a color that made sense at the time but no longer works with anything else. Shoes that are still technically wearable but have not been worn in 18 months. None of these pieces are obviously bad. That is why they are still there. They have been kept because they cost something, because they were good once, because there is always the possibility that the right occasion will appear, and so the wardrobe fills, and every morning a man with a full wardrobe stands in front of it and feels obscurely that he has nothing to wear. This feeling is not irrational. It reflects something real. A wardrobe full of pieces that do not combine, do not fit correctly, do not represent who the man is today. That wardrobe is not a resource. It is friction. It makes every morning slightly harder than it needs to be. And it means that even when a good outfit is assembled, it is assembled in spite of the wardrobe rather than because of it. This video is about fixing that. Not by buying more things, by removing the right things clearly, decisively, and permanently. Because the single most powerful thing most men over 60 can do for their style right now is not to acquire something new. It is to edit what they already own. This channel is about classic menswear, timeless style, and practical decisions that help men over 60 look sharp without overcomplicating things. A wardrobe edit is not a trend. It is a tool, the one that makes every other style decision easier. And today we are going to do it properly. The first thing to remove is the easiest to identify and the hardest to let go of, the piece that used to fit and no longer does. Bodies change. This is not a failure. It is a fact of life that applies to every man who has ever existed. But the wardrobe rarely changes at the same pace as the body, which means that in most men's wardrobes there are pieces that are carrying the ghost of a previous version of the man who owns them. A jacket whose shoulders now sit too wide, trousers that pull across the seat and thigh in a way that they did not 10 years ago, a shirt that gaps at the chest or bags through the waist. These pieces do not look bad because of age, they look bad because they are the wrong size. The test is simple. Put the piece on. Stand in front of a full-length mirror in decent light. If it looks like you are wearing someone else's clothes, if the fabric pulls somewhere it should not, if the shoulders slope where they should sit flat, if the torso hangs loose where it should follow your frame, the piece is not working for you. It does not matter what it cost. It does not matter that it fits perfectly in your memory. What it does today is the only relevant question. There is one important caveat here. Some pieces that currently do not fit can be altered by a tailor, specifically jackets and trousers that are too large rather than too small. A skilled tailor can take in a jacket through the sides, shorten a sleeve, reduce the width of a trouser leg. If a piece is otherwise good quality fabric, good color, correct style, and the fit issue is one of excess rather than insufficiency, get a quote from a tailor before discarding it. The cost of a basic alteration is almost always less than the cost of a replacement, and the result is often a much better garment than anything replaceable at the same price. The second category to remove is the one most men overlook, because it does not announce itself as clearly. The piece in the wrong color. Color relationships matter more than most men realize. A wardrobe is not a collection of individual pieces. It is a system, and like any system, the parts have to work together. A jacket that only pairs with one specific trouser, and that trouser is faded and needs replacing, is effectively useless. A shirt in a color that does not match any jacket in the wardrobe is an orphan piece. It can be worn, but only in isolation, and it creates friction every morning because it does not combine with anything else. The wrong color is not necessarily a color the man dislikes. It is a color that does not connect to the rest of what he owns. The test is to hold the piece up against the other items in the wardrobe and count how many clean, deliberate combinations it creates. If the answer is fewer than 3, The piece is making the wardrobe more complicated rather than simpler, and a complicated wardrobe is a wardrobe that does not serve its owner. There is a specific type of orphan piece that most men have but rarely identify as such: the midtone. A midtone is a piece that is neither clearly dark nor clearly light, a medium grey that does not contrast cleanly with either navy or stone, a washed-out olive that sits in no man's land between casual and refined, a shirt in a warm beige that clashes slightly with every jacket the man owns. These pieces are hard to combine, not because they are bad colors, but because they do not belong clearly to either end of the palette. They require specific pairing partners that are never quite available, and they create friction every time they are reached for. The colors that create the most combinations for men over 60 are dark navy, dark charcoal, stone, white, and dark brown or tan for shoes and leather goods. These are the colors that work with each other and with almost anything else in a neutral palette. If a piece sits outside this range, a very bright or very specific tone that only works in one context, it deserves honest evaluation. Not automatic removal, but a genuine question: how often is this actually worn, and what does it actually combine with? The third category is the most emotionally difficult to address, and the one that does the most damage when it stays: the piece that is worn out. Worn-out clothes are not always visually dramatic. They rarely look terrible in the abstract. The problem is that they look tired, a specific quality of visual fatigue that registers below the level of conscious attention but accumulates into an impression. A polo shirt whose fabric has thinned and lost structure. Jeans whose indigo has faded past the point of looking intentional. A jacket whose lining has started to pull, or whose lapels have softened and no longer hold their shape. A pair of shoes whose leather has cracked, or whose sole has worn through at the heel. Individually, any one of these pieces might seem like a reasonable item to keep wearing, but in combination, and combinations are what create overall impressions, they collectively produce a man who looks slightly less sharp than he actually is. Because worn-out pieces do not just look worn out themselves, they pull down the quality of every other piece they are worn with. A good blazer worn over a thin, faded shirt looks less good. Clean, well-fitted trousers worn with cracked shoes look less clean. The worn piece becomes the standard by which everything else is measured. The test for worn out is simple, but requires honesty. Hold the piece in good light. Look at the surface of the fabric. Is there thinning, pilling, fading, loss of structure? Put it on and look at it in the mirror from the distance at which other people see you, 3 to 4 feet. Does it look like something a well-dressed man chose to wear today? If the answer is no, it is time to remove it. Not because the piece has no sentimental value, not because it did not serve well for years, but because it is no longer doing its job. The fourth and final category is the easiest to identify, but the one most men have the most pieces of. The piece bought for one specific occasion that never became a regular part of the wardrobe. Most men have at least a few of these. A shirt bought for a particular event, a wedding, a formal dinner, that has been worn once or twice since and now hangs in the wardrobe, taking up space. A jacket purchased for a specific trip that does not fit the everyday wardrobe at home. A pair of trousers in a color that seemed right in the shop but has never quite worked in real life. These pieces were not mistakes at the time, but they are creating wardrobe noise now. The question to ask is not whether the piece is good, it is whether it is used. A piece that has not been worn in 12 months, that requires a specific occasion, that rarely or never arises, that sits in the wardrobe as a possibility rather than a certainty. That piece is costing the wardrobe more than it is contributing. It is making the daily decision more complex by adding an option that is never genuinely available. Here is the practical process for the edit. Take every piece out of the wardrobe, every piece, not just the ones you already suspect, all of them. Then apply the 4 tests in order. Does it fit correctly today? Does its color connect to at least 3 other pieces in the wardrobe? Is its condition still good? Has it been worn in the last 12 months for an occasion it will face again? If the answer to any of these questions is no, The piece belongs in one of three places: a tailor, a donation, or a bin, not back in the wardrobe. Do not rush this process. One category per session is a more effective approach than attempting the entire wardrobe at once. The decision fatigue of editing everything in one sitting leads to pieces being returned to the wardrobe simply because the man ran out of energy to make the call. Fit one day, color another, condition a third, occasion-specific pieces last, because these require the most honest evaluation and the most emotional detachment. And after each session, after each category is edited, put only the surviving pieces back. Hang them with space between them. Look at what remains. What you will usually find is that the wardrobe that remains looks more coherent, more usable, and more like the wardrobe of a man who has thought about what he wears. Not because the good pieces have changed, but because the pieces that were diluting them are no longer there. What remains after this process is not a smaller wardrobe that feels depleted. It is a more powerful wardrobe that feels resolved. Every piece in it fits. Every piece works with other pieces. Every piece is in good condition. And every piece earns its place by being something that is actually worn. This is where real style change happens. Not in buying the next right thing, although that comes next, but in removing the wrong things that are making every morning harder than it should be. A well-dressed older man does not dress better because he owns more. He dresses better because every piece he owns is exactly right. The edit is not the end of the wardrobe project. It is the beginning, the foundation that makes every subsequent decision cleaner, faster, and more certain. So here is the challenge. This week, not next month, not eventually, take one category from this video and edit it completely. The pieces that no longer fit, the pieces in the wrong color, the worn-out pieces, or the occasion-only pieces that are never worn. One category done completely. This week, you will be surprised how much sharper the wardrobe feels with even one category resolved. And in the comments, tell me which category you think is taking up the most space in your wardrobe right now. I read every one. If you appreciate honest, practical style advice for men over 60, subscribe to the channel. In the next video, we are going into what to replace what you remove with the specific pieces that build a wardrobe that actually works every time. You will not want to miss that one.